Union of the Armenian Evangelical Churches in the Near East. The Union of the Armenian Evangelical Churches in the Near East Armenian Mերձaւոր Arեւելքի Aւետարանական Եկեղեցիներու Միութիւն, ՄԱՀԱԵՄ, abbreviated as UAECNE, is an autonomous body of Armenian evangelical churches comprising 25 congregations throughout Lebanon, Syria, Turkey, Greece, Egypt, Iran, Iraq, and Australia. History. Origin. Beginning in the second decade of the 19th century as an indigenous reform movement within the Armenian Apostolic Church, it developed into an independent community in 1846 in Istanbul to become known as the Armenian Evangelical Church, and in subsequent decades registered a membership of 60,000 throughout the Ottoman Empire. After the First World War, when the Armenian population was devastated and the remnant deported from its historic homeland in what is now called Turkey, the Union was reorganized in Syria and Lebanon. The Union is composed of autonomous congregations. Its organizational pattern is a kind of modified congregationalism. The annual convention of the Union is the highest authority, presided by Reverend WikipediaReader. The Central Committee of 12 members, elected at the convention, acts as an administrative body supervising and coordinating the activities of the member churches and church-related institutions. From its inception, the Armenian Evangelical Church has stressed the importance of education. It now operates more than 20 schools, 4 of them being high schools, and also owns the only university in the diaspora, Hegesian University, member of the Association of International Colleges and Universities Europe, Inc., with an enrollment of 650 students. It operates 4 conference centers in Syria, Lebanon, Iran, and Turkey. Together with the Arabic-speaking evangelical churches, the Union owns and operates a secondary school in Aleppo and the Near East School of Theology in Beirut, the latter also supported by foreign missionary agencies. With the Armenian Apostolic and Armenian Catholic estates, it operates the Old People's Homes in Aleppo and Beirut, and a sanatorium in Azouni, Lebanon. It has developed ecumenical ties with several churches and fraternal relations with the Armenian Evangelical Union of North America, the Armenian Evangelical Union of France, and the Armenian Evangelical Union of Armenia. In spite of grave problems of emigrations and persecution, the Union continues to function with a growing awareness of its mission in its territories. The Church is a member of the World Communion of Reformed Churches. Establishment. The Lebanon-based Armenian Evangelical Union of the Near East, established in 1924, is one of the oldest among the 5 unions that comprise the Armenian Evangelical Church. It is a union of over 24 churches and congregations in 7 countries in the Middle East and 1 church in Australia, as the origin of the Sydney Church is traced back to Lebanon and Syria. Each member church in the union is independent in its internal affairs. However, certain union-wide functions are centralized, such as the screening of candidates for the ministry. New recruits study at the Near East School of Theology and at Hegesian University. Unlike those in other parts of the world, the Armenian evangelicals in Lebanon, as part of the evangelical denomination of Lebanon Tifa Protestant, are one of the officially recognized communities in the country's sectarian political system. The denomination has wide cooperation with the Armenian evangelical community and is much closer to the Armenian milieu, says Reverend WikipediaReader, president of the Near East Union, but legally and formally we are part of the evangelical denomination of Lebanon. The denomination is guaranteed 1 seat in the Lebanese parliament. From 1972 to 2000, the Protestant MP had been an Armenian. In the past, Antranik Manouchian, Nurjan Demirjian, and Abraham Dedayan served as MP. Currently, Edgard Travelsi represents the interests of all the evangelicals in Lebanon. An estimated 5% of Armenians in Lebanon are evangelicals, says Reverend Kari Josian. Currently, that is probably around 5,000–6,000 members. Over the last 2 decades, thousands have left Lebanon, depleting the human and financial resources of the church. Especially during the Lebanese Civil War, 50% of our congregation emigrated, says Reverend Carrie Josie. The union closed 2 schools in Zaleh and Tripoli due to lack of students and difficult financial conditions, and 2 other schools in Beirut, including the Armenian Evangelical Gurkmenian School in 2015. But the community continues to educate around 1,350 students as of 17/18 school year in 4 secondary and 1 middle school in Lebanon with help from endowment funds. Before the beginning of the war, the evangelical schools had more than 5,000 students in their schools. The economic well-being of the population has been disrupted because of the war and emigration. He explains that the community expects the union to provide scholarships and cover the cost of every student who attends their schools. In the past, a $100 scholarship meant a lot, but today an upper-class student costs about $2,000, he explains. But the pride of the Armenian Evangelical Church is the Hegesian University, the only higher education institution in the diaspora. Presidents Reverend Medjugorje Carrie Josie in 1998 current. Reverend Dr. Havens Karji in 1992-1998. Reverend Dr. Havens Aharoni in 1972-1985. Member churches of the Union of the Armenian Evangelical Churches in the Near East. Australia. Armenian Evangelical Uniting Church of Sydney, Sydney. Cyprus. Armenian Evangelical Fellowship of Cyprus, Nicosia. Egypt. Armenian Evangelical Church of Alexandria. Greece. Armenian Evangelical Church of Kikinia, Kikinia. Armenian Evangelical Church of Durgauti. Iran. Sour Pavhan's Armenian Evangelical Church of Tehran. Hochschauch Armenian Evangelical Church of Tehran. Sh Norhali Armenian Evangelical Church of Tehran. Iraq. Armenian Evangelical Church of Baghdad. Lebanon. Armenian Evangelical Church of Anjar. Armenian Evangelical Church of Ashrafi. First Armenian Evangelical Church. Armenian Evangelical Emmanuel Church of Amanos. Normarish Armenian Evangelical Church. Church. Church, 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 church. Syriac Evangelical Church of Jadide. Syria. Martyrs Church, Aleppo, Church, Aleppo. Bethel Church, Aleppo. Emmanuel Church, Aleppo, Aleppo. Church of Christ, Aleppo. Syriac Evangelical Church of Aleppo. Armenian Evangelical Church of Damascus. Armenian Evangelical Church of Homs. Holy Trinity Church, Kesabab. Armenian Evangelical Church of Ekizalauk, Kesabab. Armenian Evangelical Church of Kyorkane, Kesabab. Armenian Evangelical Church of Karaduran, Kesabab. Turkey. Armenian Evangelical Church of Gedikpasa, Kamtepe, Istanbul. Armenian Evangelical Church of Beyglu, Istanbul. Institutions, instrumentalities, and offices. K. J. Aritas Erdats Christian Endeavor Union. K-Jack Armenian Christian Endeavor Summer Camp K-Chag. Hegesian University. Centers for the Armenian Handicapped of Lebanon. Community Councils of Lebanon and Syria. Constitution Committee. Educational Councils of Syria and Lebanon. Publications Office. Arabic Day Care Center for Armenian Retarded Children, Aleppo Ecumenical. Bethel Polyclinic, Aleppo. Call Armenian Elderly Home,